Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here to talk to you about butterscotch. Yes, butterscotch, the classical music of confectionery, the ultimate in hard candy, the stuff that people who are connoisseurs of all that's great in the sugar trade should aspire to. I mean, really, seriously, it's amazing stuff. And the history of butterscotch in the confectionery business is so similar to what's been going on in the classical music world that I felt I just had to try and tell you the story and create this hopelessly extended analogy or metaphor or whatever you want to call it, comparison with what's been going on in classical music. Now, whence butterscotch? I mean, butterscotch is just fabulous stuff. It's a candy made from butter, obviously, and sugar and some other goodies that get mixed together and hardened into little lozenges or pellets or something, and it just has the most wonderful buttery flavor. Its virtue is its simplicity, because few things in the universe are more delicious than the combination of butter and sugar. I mean, brown sugar particularly, which is what butterscotch has. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. However, as a child, I believed that confectionery, candy, was what was in the, that cheap rack at the newspaper stand. That's what candy was. And part of that candy was a roll of stuff called butterscotch, which was an interesting yellow flavor and somewhat translucent. And it had enough of the concept of butterscotch to be quite tasty, but it was rather artificial tasting and kind of cheap. You could taste the cheapness. It was sort of the way most of us begin when we're children, hearing music. It's just whatever's out there. It's in the environment. It's popular music. It's top 40. It's whatever your friends are listening to. That's music. Well, that was butterscotch for me. However, my grandmother, my mother's mother, was a connoisseur. She had a brand of butterscotch that came from England called Callard and Bowser. Now, Callard and Bowser made an unbelievably high-end butterscotch. It was the classical music of butterscotch in terms of its purity, its excellence, its care for quality, its packaging. It was in a beautiful white box with a slide-out tray wrapped in heavy silver foil, each single one, and you could break them in half. They had you got two shots for each single one, like classical music. It was larger form confectionery. It was candy in larger forms. It took longer to suck, longer to eat, longer to break and play with. Oh, God, it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. And she had it in her living room, usually sitting on a table. And when she passed away, she was quite young. She was only 58. She had rheumatic heart disease. And I remember, I was about 12 or 13 or 14 when she died, 14, I think. And the last thing I gave her was a box of Callard and Bowser butterscotch, because she was on a very, very restricted diet. She was very grateful. And after she passed away, I remember going into her room and seeing that there was half a box of Callard and Bowser butterscotch that I'd given her. It was still there. She hadn't finished it. She'd been savoring it bit by bit. And oh, I was so touched. From then on, I associated Callard and Bowser butterscotch with my grandmother, the finer things in life, quality of life issues, living the best we could with the time we have. That's what classical music did for me too. I mean, it was very similar. They were all jumbled up in my confused teenage brain, and they still are in my confused adult brain. Absolutely wonderful stuff. But then Callard and Bowser disappeared. Oh my God, what happened? Well, what happened in the classical music industry with mergers and acquisitions. And I can tell you what happened to it. Let me tell you right here. I have it on Wikipedia. Callard and Bowser was founded by two Scottish brothers-in-law, Richard Callard and John Bowser, in 1779 in Mayhill, Glasgow, during the Scottish Enlightenment period. I knew it was enlightened. It started in the Baroque period, yes, or the classical period, the early classical, the Rococo period. That's when we got real butterscotch. Callard and Bowser was owned by Arthur Guinness and Sons from 1953 to 1962, but then it was acquired by the American conglomerate Beatrice Foods. In 1988, it was purchased by United Biscuits, and in 1993, the company was sold to Kraft Foods, who operated it until its 2004 acquisition by Wrigley. Now, Wrigley is a subdivision of M&M Mars, which is a huge, food company. I mean, aside from M&Ms and Mars bars and all that, they own all kinds of stuff. They own drinks. They own Wrigley's gums. They own pet care products. Really, an extraordinarily large privately owned company, and they have no idea that probably sitting in their files somewhere is the recipe for original Callard and Bowser butterscotch. Because today, let me see here. I know I have this somewhere. The only thing that Callard and Bowser still makes, wait a minute, let me get this, is this. Altoids mints. Yes, we love Altoids. Altoids are wonderful. They're wonderful for the same reason Callard and Bowser was wonderful, because they went back to like several centuries with an amazingly simple, effective, and delicious recipe, which ought never to have been discontinued, just like the many, many recordings that we talk about that ought never to have been cut out. Or that are ripe for reissue. Callard and Bowser butterscotch is ripe for reissue. Okay, so in the meantime, Callard and Bowser is gone. This classic that the mindless corporate behemoth didn't care about. I mean, it's gone. What am I to do? What was I going to do? It was like my whole quality of life was taking a dive. Well, finding real butterscotch turned out to be a bit of a trip. There were three options, to replace Callard and Bowser. None of them exactly like the original, but comparable and very good. And one of them, the most interesting possibly, was in Japan. It was this, Chelsea. Now, Chelsea made a bunch of hard candies and other things. It's made by Magi. That's the brand. See, Magi? Don't get too used to it, because there are issues. It did not have the same purity of ingredients as Callard and Bowser. It was a more modern take. You would say perhaps it wasn't historically informed the way Callard and Bowser was. I mean, instead of just the basic ingredients, we have sugar, corn syrup, butter, yes, dextrose, whey powder, vegetable oil, dextrin, caramel syrup, salt, emulsifier, whatever that is, caramel coloring, and amino acid. Okay, that's fine. It tastes remarkably similar to the original Callard and Bowser, and it's packaged, it's Japanese, it's packaged very nicely. It's in a nice little thing. It has heavy wrapping, individual pieces. It's kind of pricey, but there it is. And it's very, very good. However, Meiji recently, in the past just few months, announced they were discontinuing Chelsea. They had a couple different flavors. They had like a yogurt flavor. They had some, it's Japanese. So by Western standards, the flavors were a little interesting, but in amongst the, candied, squid gizzards and toxic pufferfish truffles, they had this. The closest thing to Callard and Bowser that you could get. And it's gone! I have as many leftover ones as I could get my hands on, but it's gone. However, knowing that it was going, I decided to, sort of hedge my bets and do some further research. There is indeed an English confectionary maker, called Champion and Reeves. Now, Champion and Reeves self-consciously, look, it looks just like Callard and Bowser here, not the actual candy. The actual candy was a paler, milkier looking thing, but this is quite similar in flavor and in packaging. I mean, it's very sophisticatedly packaged with these beautiful, heavy silver wrapped pieces that come in two pieces that you break, and you have one, then you have the other. So that's, it's candy in large forms. It takes some time, as classical music does. And the ingredients, here they are. Sugars, brown sugar, double cream, unsalted butter, kiln-dried sea salt. Not just any sea salt, but sea salt dried in a kiln makes all the difference. Black muscovado, dark muscovado. Muscovado is another form of brown sugar. It's a stickier, more molasses-saturated brown sugar, and vanilla extract. So there we have it. I mean, real butterscotch. I was so excited. I was so happy. But also, at the same time that I discovered Champion and Reeves, I discovered these. See's candy. Now, See's candy, butterscotch little pops, hard candy treats. Now, these were a revelation. First of all, they look very much like Callard and Bowser butterscotches did. I mean, these are the ones that visually have similar appeal. See's Candies was founded in 1921 in Los Angeles by a company that actually at one point had a spectacular divorce and fight and whatnot. But now it's owned by Warren Buffett and Berkshire Hathaway, believe it or not. A major investment thing. But it seems to be treated lovingly and taken care of. They have their own shops, more than 200 of them. And they also sell online. All of these people sell online, by the way. At least Champion and Reeves does and See's does. And they also made butterscotch lollipops, which I never tried because I think putting a stick on butterscotch is somewhat undignified. I really do. But apparently it's popular. They make lovely chocolates, really first top quality chocolates. And like I said, they sell out of their own stores, or they sell in malls and in kiosks and things like that. You can find them around. I actually know that you can get these, or you could get these, I don't know if you still can, at Hudson News in the Grand Central Station newsstand, because I pass through there when I go to work. So, they're around. And they're not as well known on the East Coast as they are on the West Coast. They're basically a California-based company. They were the chocolate factory. You may remember that fabulous I Love Lucy episode where she's supposed to learn how to wrap chocolates. And she's there with, on the assembly line, which is faster and faster, and she starts stuffing them in her face. And that was at See's Candies, believe it or not, in the 1950s. It's a wonderful company. They make wonderful peanut brittle, toffee, crunchy things, and just really good stuff. So they make these things called butterscotch little pops, which are the size of 1/2 of a Callard and Bowser butterscotch. And the ingredients are corn syrup, sugar, cream, brown sugar, butter, vinegar, and salt. There it is. No bells, no whistles, the ultimate pure butterscotch recipe. And they are as close to Callard and Bowser as I think you could possibly get. Champion and Reeves is also very, very similar. As I said, they're delicious. I mean, they're wonderful. They tried to sort of, buck up the gourmet angle a little bit, maybe. But this is the old true deal. And you can still find them for now. God knows how long. As with the classical music industry, you had feisty independent labels. They became successful. They were merged and conglomerated, and eventually their best products were discontinued, and now they're owned by companies that don't know what they have and may or may not reissue them, while you still have a few small independent manufacturers who really care, who haven't forgotten the original concept, who understand what the product is and cherish it and nurture it. And yes, butterscotch, it is the classical music of the candy world. And so I just wanted to tell you about that because the comparisons were very striking, and because Butterscotch is just amazing, and it goes really, really well with your classical music. Trust me, it really does. And especially if you're going to a concert of something that may be a little dull or you're a little bored, use one of these. Don't take a breath mint. You can of course always have your Callard and Bowser hit and bring an Altoid, but no, Butterscotch is the way to go. Because no matter where you are or what you're doing, it will remind you of higher and better things. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.